I used to think friends were the melody that kept life humming, the kind of song you couldn't imagine going quiet. Everyone told me so, friends, family, even the self-help books stacked on my nightstand. You need people around you, always. They're your spark, your lifeline, your reason to keep going, no matter how many years pile up. For decades, I believed it. I'd fill my days with the clink of coffee mugs and laughter, the warm chaos of crowded dinners, the comfort of a voice on the other end of the phone. It felt like harmony, like without those notes, I'd just be static. But then, somewhere past 70, the music changed. The gatherings I'd once loved started feeling off-key, the calls more like noise than comfort. One foggy morning, as I sat on my porch with a mug of tea, watching raindrops patter on the awning, a question crept in. What if the real harmony comes from letting go? Here I am now, sharing this story on harmonic aging, not because it's just mine, but because it's stitched together from the threads of my own stumbles, the lives I've watched shift around me, and maybe even the quiet thoughts you've had too. It's about how I stopped clinging to friendships after 70 and found a rhythm so peaceful, so freeing, it rewrote everything I thought I knew about growing older. It's not about turning away from the world, it's about tuning into yourself, finding a song that doesn't need a choir to sound beautiful. Let me take you back to my younger days when I thought life was a performance. I was always on stage, juggling roles, friend, host, confidant, trying to prove I deserved a spotlight. I'd throw together potlucks that spilled into the early hours, memorize every birthday in my address book, and drive across town just to keep a coffee date. It wasn't just about connection, it was about showing I belonged, proving I was enough. I think of my old friend Mai, 71, who lived that script too. She'd spent her career in a whirlwind of colleagues, happy hours, team retreats, group chats that buzzed like a beehive. When she retired, it was like someone pulled the plug. Her inbox went silent, her calls unanswered. I remember her sitting on my couch one evening, her hands twisting around a glass of wine, voice low. I keep reaching out, but it's like shouting into a void. For months, she tried to stitch it back together, chasing people who'd already left the stage. Then one day, she stopped. I'm done auditioning, she told me, a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. She let them go, and didn't just survive, she soared. No more forcing herself into spaces that didn't fit, no more begging for a nod from people too busy to care. That stuck with me. I started looking at my own life, at the numbers I dialed out of habit, the lunches I went to just to keep up. Why was I still performing? I'd raised a family, weathered heartaches, built a life I could stand back and call my own. I didn't need applause anymore. So I started cutting ties, not with anger, but with a quiet clarity. I stopped texting the friend who only replied when she needed a favor, skipped the reunion that felt more like a rerun than a revival. And you know what? The world didn't fall apart. It got lighter. I'd sit in my garden, the hum of bees louder than my phone, and feel something I hadn't in years, relief. When you stop proving yourself, you don't lose your place, you find it. Then there's the peace that sneaks in, soft as a whisper at first, then loud enough to drown out everything else. I used to love the noise, full calendars, clinking glasses, the thrill of a house packed with voices. In my 40s, an empty weekend felt like a misstep, like I'd missed the beat. I'd race from one plan to the next, afraid of what silence might say if I let it linger. But after 70, quiet started singing a different song. I think of my neighbor Duck, 74, who used to be the maestro of our little street. Every Sunday, his backyard was a festival, grills smoking, music blaring, neighbors spilling onto the lawn. Gotta keep the party going, he'd laugh, tossing me a beer. But one summer, the parties stopped. I caught him one morning, sitting on his porch with a thermos of coffee, staring at the oak trees swaying in the breeze. Got tired of the racket, he admitted when I asked. Half those folks just came to complain, about their kids, their jobs, the weather. Never asked how I was holding up. So he traded it all for dawn walks by the creek, for afternoons with nothing but the rustle of leaves. It's like I can hear myself again, he said, and I saw a calm in his face I'd never noticed before. That hit me hard. I started noticing how my own social whirl left me drained. The friend who'd gossip for hours but never asked about my day, the group chats that buzzed with drama I didn't care about, it was all noise, not music. So I turned it down. I skipped the next coffee invite, let a call go to voicemail, spent a Saturday morning alone with a crossword and the birds outside my window. That first day of quiet felt like sinking into a warm bath. Every muscle I hadn't known was tense just let go. I started craving that stillness, guarding it like a secret melody. Peace isn't about how many voices fill your air, it's about how steady you feel when they're gone. Age has a way of tuning your ears too, doesn't it? You start hearing what's real and what's just static. I used to pour myself into friendships like they were sacred, late-night calls when someone needed to vent, rides to the airport at dawn, cards sent for every milestone. But too often, the effort didn't echo back. My old friend Lynn, 76, knew that ache. She was the glue for her book club, planning every meeting, knitting scarves for their birthdays, always the one to check in. I'd see her scribbling notes for their next read, her kitchen table buried in paperbacks. But when her husband got sick, the club went quiet. I thought they'd show up, she told me one afternoon, her voice brittle as she stirred her tea. I kept waiting, but they didn't. It broke her, until it didn't. She let them go, not with a fight, but with a sigh. "I'm done carrying people who won't carry me," she said. And the disappointment that used to claw at her? It faded. Fewer friends meant fewer letdowns, fewer promises that turned to dust. I saw myself in her. I'd been lugging around ties that didn't hold, people I'd call who'd forget to call back, plans I'd make that they'd break without a thought. So I stopped. I didn't announce it, didn't burn bridges, just let the static fade. I quit texting the friend who only surfaced when she was bored, stopped planning dinners with folks who showed up late or not at all. And the relief was instant, like turning off a radio stuck on a bad station. It wasn't about shutting the world out, it was about keeping the ones who added to the song, not the ones who drowned it out. You don't owe anyone your airtime, especially not those who tune out when you need them most. Time changes key too, doesn't it? When I was young, it felt like an endless chorus, days blending into years, hours I could toss away like spare change. After 70, every note feels sharper, more precious. I think of my Uncle Tuan, 80, who used to live for the spotlight. He was the guy at every party, phone glued to his ear, always juggling a dozen plans. I'd spot him at weddings, funerals, random Tuesday barbecues, always grinning, always on. But one spring, I found him alone by the lake, skipping stones across the water. I was wasting it, he said when I asked why he'd gone quiet. All those talks, all that running around, it wasn't for me. It was for them. So he stopped. He started fishing at dawn, strumming his old guitar under the stars, letting the days stretch slow and full. Time didn't slip anymore, it sang back. That shifted something in me. I started guarding my hours like a composer protects a score. I quit filling them with people who didn't get it, friends who'd drag me into gossip I didn't care about, invites that felt more like chores than joys. I said no to the dinner I didn't want, yes to a morning alone with my paints and a canvas. Every choice started to matter, because I knew I wasn't just spending time, I was shaping it. You've earned that by now, haven't you? To keep your hours for what makes your heart hum, not what fills someone else's playlist. But here's where the melody deepens. I used to think happiness needed a full band, voices all around, playing in sync. The world hammers that into you, you'll fade without people. Then I met Wa, 72, who rewrote the score. She used to pack her days with meetups, lunches, card games, anything to dodge the quiet. I'd see her rushing from one event to the next, her smile tight, her eyes tired. But it left her empty. One stormy evening, she skipped her usual crowd, stayed home, and wandered her backyard instead. The rain had stopped, and the air smelled of wet grass. I thought I'd feel lost, she told me later, her voice soft but sure. But I felt found. She started savoring her own rhythm, reading by her window, walking with no rush, letting her thoughts unfold like a slow, perfect chord. Her words sank into me. I started turning down the volume on others, tuning into myself. I'd sit on my porch with a book, the pages curling in the breeze, and not feel the itch to call someone. I'd take a drive alone, just me and the road, and smile at the quiet. I didn't need a backup singer to feel alive, I was the song. And the funny thing? When you're at peace with your own beat, the right voices join in, ones that match your tempo, not try to rewrite it. And here's the final chord, the one that ties it all together. letting go isn't a fade out, it's a crescendo. After 70, giving yourself permission to drop what doesn't fit is like tuning an instrument that's been off for years. My cousin Nam, 78, used to swear by his crowded life, old army buddies, neighbors, a revolving door of faces. He'd say, "It's what keeps me sharp." I'd see him at every barbecue, every card game, his laugh cutting through the noise. But one winter, he went quiet. I found him in his shed, sanding a piece of wood for a chair he was building, his cat curled up nearby. I was scared to stop, he admitted, brushing sawdust off his hands. Scared I'd lose the rhythm. But he let go anyway, dropped the catch-ups that felt like homework, the ties he'd outgrown. He started his mornings with tea and the sunrise, his evenings with that cat purring beside him. He didn't dim, he glowed. I followed his lead. I shed friendships tethered by guilt, not joy, people I stayed with out of habit, not heart. The space they left didn't echo with loss, it filled with a harmony I'd forgotten. I'd wake to the soft creak of my house, spend afternoons with my sketchbook, let the quiet settle like a perfect note. Letting go didn't mute my life, it turned up the volume on what mattered. So here's what I've learned, sharing this with you on Harmonic Aging. You don't need a full orchestra after 70 to feel in tune. You need peace, freedom, a life that plays your truth. I've let go of friendships that clashed, and I've found a melody in the silence they left behind. What about you? Have you dropped a sour note lately? Found a new rhythm on your own? Tell me below, I read every comment, and it's your stories that keep this song alive. If this hit a chord, give it a like, share it with someone who'd hum along, and follow Harmonic Aging for more tales like this. Let's keep the harmony going. I'll see you in the next one.